Security Operations Center, SOC, exists to detect and respond to threats. Yet the systems that power the SOC can become high-value targets themselves if they are not protected with the same seriousness as the rest of the environment. This is a subtle idea for beginners because it feels strange to think of security tools as something that also needs strong security, but it makes perfect sense when you realize how much power and sensitive information SOC technology holds. ASIEM can contain broad visibility into user activity and system events. A case system can contain detailed incident narratives, and automation platforms can sometimes trigger response actions that affect production systems. If an attacker gains access to these tools, they can hide activity, mislead defenders, steal sensitive evidence, or even turn the defender's own capabilities into weapons. The goal here is to explain how to secure SOC technology using 4 pillars that work together: least privilege, hardening, monitoring, and logging. When you understand these pillars as a coherent approach, you can design a SOC that is not only effective at defense, but also resilient against being compromised itself. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. Least privilege is the foundation because SOC tools tend to connect to many systems and often operate with broad permissions if nobody deliberately limits them. Least privilege means each account, role, and integration identity has only the permissions needed for its specific job and nothing more. This applies to human users, such as analysts, engineers, and managers, and it applies to service identities used for integrations and automation. The main reason this matters is blast radius, because if any account is compromised, the damage is limited to what that account can do. In SOC tooling, blast radius can be enormous because a single overprivileged account might be able to modify detection logic, delete evidence, or execute response actions across many systems. A defensible approach breaks privileges into separate roles so that reading data, writing cases, modifying rules, and administering infrastructure are not all granted to the same identity. It also uses strong access review habits so privileges do not quietly expand over time as people change roles and new integrations are added. When you treat least privilege as an operational discipline rather than a one-time setup, you reduce risk in a way that is measurable and sustainable. For human access, least privilege begins with role design that reflects real work patterns. Analysts often need read access to logs, the ability to annotate and update cases, and the ability to trigger limited investigation actions, but they rarely need administrative access to change core platform configurations. Engineers might need the ability to tune detections and manage data pipelines, but they may not need the authority to execute disruptive response actions without approval. Managers may need reporting access and oversight views, but not the ability to alter evidence or delete records. These distinctions matter because accidents are as real as malicious compromise, and a platform that allows a simple mistake to delete evidence is a platform that creates risk. Least privilege also supports accountability because actions can be linked to roles and responsibilities rather than being hidden behind shared access. For beginners, the main takeaway is that SOC tools should be designed so routine work is easy and safe, while high-impact changes require deliberate permission. This aligns with the idea that security operations should be repeatable and defensible, not dependent on trust in individual behavior. Least privilege becomes even more important when you consider integration and automation identities, because these identities often run continuously and can affect many systems. ASIEM ingestion identity should be able to receive data, not modify the source systems that provide it. ASOAR identity that enriches alerts should be able to read context, not alter user permissions or disable security controls without strict governance. A case system integration identity should be able to create and update case records, not export all incident data to untrusted locations. A mature program treats these identities as high-risk assets and protects them with strong authentication, careful permission scope, and clear ownership. It also rotates and manages credentials in a disciplined way so long-lived secrets do not become permanent backdoors. The operational reason this matters is that attackers love service accounts because they are often overlooked, and compromising one can provide stealthy, persistent access. When least privilege is applied to integration identities, you reduce the chance that one compromised token turns into broad control of the security operations pipeline. This is a high-leverage risk reduction step and a common theme in defensible program design. Hardening is the second pillar, and it means reducing the attack surface of SOC systems by making them harder to misuse and easier to keep in a known good state. Hardening includes removing unnecessary features, limiting network exposure, and enforcing secure configurations that reduce common weaknesses. For SOC technology, hardening often means limiting administrative interfaces to trusted networks, disabling unused services, and applying secure configuration baselines consistently. It also means managing updates and patching in a controlled way, because vulnerabilities in security tools can be especially dangerous due to their privileged position. A beginner should understand that hardening is not about making systems impossible to use. It is about reducing unnecessary openings and ensuring the tools behave predictably. Predictable behavior is important because SOC tools must be reliable during incidents, and fragile systems that break under load can become liabilities at the worst time. When hardening is part of the program, the SOC's own technology becomes less likely to be the weak link in attacker exploits. A key hardening concept is segmentation and access boundaries, because SOC platforms should not be exposed broadly when they contain sensitive data and powerful capabilities. Limiting access pathways reduces the number of places an attacker can attempt entry and reduces the risk of credential abuse from untrusted networks. It also helps protect the confidentiality of incident data, because case records and logs can contain information that could harm the organization if leaked. Hardening also includes tightening configuration settings that control what users can do, such as limiting export capabilities, requiring approvals for certain actions, and enforcing strong session controls to reduce the risk of session theft. Another useful hardening practice is ensuring that administrative activities are separated from daily analyst activities, because mixing them increases the chance that routine work is performed under overly privileged sessions. These ideas support the same theme as least privilege, which is controlled capability with limited blast radius. In an exam context, answers that emphasize segmentation, restricted administrative access, and deliberate configuration control often reflect a mature approach. Hardening is not a one-time project because platforms change, integrations grow, and new features appear, so hardening must be maintained as part of operational hygiene. Monitoring is the third pillar, and it means watching the SOC systems themselves for signs of misuse, failure, or drift. This can feel like an odd idea at first because you might assume the SOC tools are the watchers, but the watchers must also be watched. Monitoring includes detecting suspicious access to SOC platforms, unusual changes to detection logic, unexpected configuration modifications, and abnormal data flows that suggest exfiltration or tampering. It also includes monitoring for health and reliability, such as whether log ingestion has gaps, whether correlation rules are producing expected volumes, and whether automation workflows are failing. The reason monitoring matters is that a compromise of SOC tooling can be subtle, such as an attacker modifying detection rules to reduce visibility or altering alert thresholds so important events are ignored. It can also be operational, such as ingestion failures that silently remove evidence. A well-run program treats monitoring of SOC systems as a critical part of defending the defender. When you monitor the monitoring systems, you reduce the chance that an attacker can blind you without being noticed. Monitoring also supports governance by ensuring that high-impact actions are visible and auditable. If someone changes a detection rule, you want to know who did it, when it happened, and what the change was, because detection integrity affects the entire security posture. If someone exports large amounts of case data, you want to know whether that was authorized and whether it matches operational needs. If automation triggers response actions, you want to see the trigger conditions and the approval path if approvals are required. This is where monitoring becomes part of trust, because trust in a security program depends on being able to prove that critical decisions and changes are controlled. A beginner-friendly way to see this is that monitoring creates accountability and early warning at the same time. It also supports continuous improvement because monitoring data can reveal where processes are breaking, such as repeated workflow failures or persistent ingestion gaps. When a SOC monitors its own technology, it becomes more resilient because it can detect both attacks and operational degradation. That resilience is a core theme in mature security operations management. Logging is the fourth pillar, and it is closely tied to monitoring, but it has its own distinct purpose, creating a reliable record that supports investigation, evidence, and learning. Logging for SOC technology includes access logs, administrative action logs, configuration change logs, data ingestion logs, and workflow execution logs. These logs must be collected consistently, protected from tampering, and retained long enough to support investigations and compliance requirements. The reason logging matters is that without it, you cannot reconstruct what happened during a suspected compromise of your tools, and you cannot prove whether detection was functioning correctly at a given time. Logging also supports incident response because it allows you to trace whether an attacker attempted to disable alerts, delete evidence, or manipulate cases. A well-designed logging approach includes clear identification of privileged actions and clear linkage between actions and identities, because attribution is important for both security and accountability. Logging is also a defense against confusion because it turns uncertain memory into documented evidence. For beginners, it helps to remember that logging is how you preserve truth over time, and truth is what operations depend on. A critical point is that logging and monitoring are only effective when the logs themselves are trustworthy, which means they must be protected. If an attacker can delete or modify logs inside the same tool they compromise, the logs lose value as evidence. A defensible approach often includes storing logs in a way that reduces the chance of tampering, using strict access controls and separation so that administrative access to the tool does not automatically grant the ability to erase the record of actions. It also includes alerting on suspicious log behavior, such as sudden drops in event volume or missing expected sources, because those can indicate ingestion disruption or deliberate suppression. Another important logging practice is ensuring time consistency, because accurate timestamps are essential for reconstructing sequences during investigations. When timestamps drift or are inconsistent, incident timelines become unreliable, and that can delay response or create wrong conclusions. By treating log integrity as part of tool security, you ensure that evidence remains usable when it matters most. This is a subtle but high-value management decision because it protects the SOC's ability to know what happened. These four pillars reinforce each other, and the most mature approach is to treat them as a system rather than as separate checkboxes. Least privilege reduces what a compromised identity can do. Hardening reduces how easily systems can be compromised. Monitoring increases the chance of early detection of misuse or failure, and logging preserves evidence and supports investigation and improvement. If you have least privilege but no monitoring, misuse might go unnoticed even if damage is limited. If you have monitoring but weak hardening, compromises may be frequent and create constant distraction. If you have logging but no integrity controls, the logs can be manipulated and become unreliable when you need them. The strength comes from layering, which is the same principle that underlies defensible security architecture. For a SOC, these layers are especially important because the tooling is both sensitive and powerful. When you design these layers intentionally, you protect not only the tools, but also the trust in the security program. Another operational truth is that securing SOC technology must include change control and disciplined administration habits, because many security failures are introduced through well-intentioned changes. When detection rules are tuned, integrations are added, or automation workflows are modified, those changes should be reviewed and validated so they do not accidentally remove critical coverage or create new exposure. This does not require heavy bureaucracy, but it does require consistency, such as documented changes, clear ownership, and the ability to roll back when outcomes are not as expected. Change control supports security by reducing accidental misconfiguration and supports reliability by preventing unpredictable drift. It also supports auditability because you can show when and why major changes occurred, which matters when incidents are reviewed. For beginners, it is important to recognize that a SOC toolchain is a production system, and production systems require careful change discipline to remain stable. Stability is a security feature because stable systems produce consistent evidence and predictable behavior under stress. When stability is protected, the SOC can focus on defending the organization rather than defending against its own tool failures. As you prepare for exam questions in this area, you should expect scenarios that test whether you understand that security tooling is part of the attack surface and must be protected accordingly. The most defensible answers usually emphasize least privilege for both humans and integrations, restricted administrative access, and monitoring of high-impact changes like detection rule modifications and case data exports. They also emphasize strong logging with integrity and retention because evidence about the security tools themselves is often critical during investigations. In scenarios involving automation, defensible answers often include governance and approvals for high-impact actions because automation without control can increase business risk. In scenarios involving data flow, defensible answers include limiting exposure and monitoring for ingestion gaps because visibility failures can create hidden risk. This is management thinking because it connects security controls to operational trust and sustainability, not just to technical correctness. When you can explain why these pillars matter and how they work together, you demonstrate a mature understanding of protecting the defender. Securing SOC technology is ultimately about preserving the SOC's ability to see clearly, decide accurately, and act safely, because those are the core functions the organization depends on. Least privilege ensures that access is controlled and blast radius is limited. Hardening reduces unnecessary openings and stabilizes the tool environment. Monitoring provides early warning and accountability for misuse or failure, and logging preserves the evidence needed to investigate, learn, and improve. Together, these pillars keep the SOC toolchain trustworthy, and trust is what allows security operations to function under pressure without collapsing into confusion. If you can apply these ideas to any tool category, you will be able to reason through exam scenarios that ask what to secure first, how to protect integrations, and how to prevent attackers from blinding defenders. More importantly, you will carry forward a practical truth. The best security operations teams protect their own visibility and decision systems as carefully as they protect everything else, because losing trust in your tools is one of the fastest ways to lose control of an incident.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.